I rise to look back with pride, to look around with dismay, and to look forward with hope. The first part of the pride I feel today is from a deep sense of personal accomplishment for work that has made a difference in the life of Minnesota. There are almost certainly 70 more women alive today because the House would not yield to the Senate when we raised the police awareness and made attempted strangulation a felony in 2005. Thousands of more non-custodial parents are now involved with their children because we updated the child support formulas in 2005. When Drew Shadeen was raped and left in a field to die, in a frozen field to die by a liberated level 3 sex offender, we vowed that this should never happen again. So we passed a law providing for life without release for the worst of the worst predators convicted of premeditated murder or heinous sex crimes. We went from 400 meth labs in Chisago County in 2005 to only 2 a year later because we passed the toughest anti-meth law in the country in 2005. One person can make a difference with persistent pursuit for what is right, as they are allowed to understand what is right. That's why I am proud to have been chief author of more bills that were signed into law than any other member of this body. Sorry for the bragging. Actually, I'm not sorry. The second part of my pride today is to have worked with so many other individuals who were committed to make Minnesota better. There are certainly almost 500 more children alive today because I got to work with Mary Liz Holberg on the Woman's Right to Know Act. There's 30,000 more law-abiding citizens in Minnesota to keep and bear arms. That's less infringed today because I got to work with Linda Boudreau and Larry Howes to deliver the Personal Protection Act. From 1991 to 2007, I worked with and learned from my friend Speaker Steve Swigum, whose watchwords were balance and respect. Those watchwords enabled the work to preserve personal freedom and get the necessary work done that individual citizens cannot do for themselves. Those watchwords of balance and respect were also learned and observed from another of my friends in the House, Speaker Margaret Anderson Kelleher, who showed that you can avoid deadlock and disgrace if you work with a governor from a different party. If you want Minnesota to succeed, you cannot hope that our governor will fail. The third of my pride today is because I got to be a voice for the old Republican Party that was a legitimate and honorable strand of our American and Minnesota heritage. We were committed to doing well what had to be accomplished and doing without those things which people could do for themselves. That old-fashioned philosophy was reflected in the issues that I fought for. Public safety, bonds between parents and children, the right to bear arms, the right to protect life at both ends of our lives, and the right to private property. I have stood with Republicans like Teddy Roosevelt in defending the right of free men and women to negotiate for safer work conditions, reasonable benefits, fair pay in return for their labor. Anything that I have accomplished or made has been made possible by people like Cheryl Burke, Mitzi Ellis, my LA's Jeff Diebel, Rebecca Pirius, Bill Marks, Gary Carger, and my friend of 41 years, Dennis Verdon. Finally, I'm proud to have worked respectfully, amiably, and productively with people representing Minnesota's other great political faith. Much good has been accomplished by working with DFLers who can seek common ground and who can disagree without being disagreeable. I thank dozens of friends and colleagues such as Deborah Hillstrom, Michael Paymar, Karen Clark, Sheldon Johnson, and my friend Tommy Rukavina. But I would be remiss if I did not thank and express admiration for that woman who combines passion, commitment, vision, and decency, Chair Mary Murphy from Hermantown. Also, my dear friend Andy Gilday, My dear friend Mary, who is behind me in the alcove today. I've known her for 24 years, and she's helped me with 4 re-elections. The last one didn't work, but that's another story. Finally, my dear son, Ryan, who will be 24 years old in 6 days. Now, those of us who have had small children know that our long hours here have robbed us of some time with our kids. Further, he returned last year from 4 years of active duty with the U.S. Air Force as a military policeman, ground security, and while we were here debating bills, he served 2 tours in Iraq defending our right to do so. But as I look back in pride, I must also look around with sadness. The Republican Party, in which I believed, has at times shown inflexible adherence to the rhetoric of the principle of the day. I'm almost done. I will continue to look back with pride. I will continue to look around with sadness, and I will continue to live in hope. My hope is this, that the 2-party system of civility and survival will be restored. Then Minnesotans will prevail. God will help free people who work together. In closing, I want to quote Ronald Reagan when he ran for president in 1980. He was criticized for having been an actor and therefore unfit to be president. He smiled at the questioner and he said politics and acting were similar. Say your lines, don't bump into the furniture, and then get off the stage. Thank you.